very interesting.
Thank you, Sudha. And going over to Umashri, I'm going to definitely ask you one question. We both of us were talking about a worst kind of a scenario. Do you want to explain on that, Uma?
Sure, Sarva. So we are in a midst of a pandemic, and we are mostly coming to the second phase of the coronavirus, which means there's going to be much larger outbreak. But we are also getting used to the new normal. We are no longer feeling that locked up anymore. We don't follow the rules that the government lays. So with all that comes definitive challenges. So as part of that, the first and foremost is we are also glued after work to our mobile phones and television channels, that we end up sleeping late, which means that it can also impact our work. So whatever may be your sleeping time, please ensure you have enough sleep and get back to work and show up on time, which is very important. Second is understanding the resources, like Sudha mentioned, Vasuki mentioned, like the constraints of the space. Not everybody may have a private space where they can convert into a makeshift office for the next few months. So understand your resources and manage it accordingly. Keep it noise free and also be presentable, as I already said. The next and foremost important thing came out of an incident that I have encountered with one of my colleagues is not knowing where what we keep at home to our family members. A small example is when this person felt sick somewhere, he did not have access to the medical insurance file from the office laptop, and there was no identity card Xerox available at home, not the medical insurance thing. So it became quite uneasy for the family to keep chasing and then finding all the details and then helping him when he was in New York. So I would suggest that keep your medical insurance file not only updated, renewed, your policies renewed, but also please share that information with your family members. It's very, very important. And also please do write down an emergency list of contact details. Keep it at least with one of your friend in office who can jump into action just in case you and your family unfortunately have to encounter any medical emergency. Please don't deny that this may not happen to me, this will not happen to me because I'm keeping a hygienic work environment, clean home, I'm washing my hands, I'm doing everything possible. But please remember that such a pandemic can impact any one of us. So let's be little prepared of that. So we people in India are generally very apprehensive to talk about death, but when it knocks our doors, that is when we make all our family members go into a kind of jittery. So let's keep a very small file called What If I Die? It's very important. Your emergency contact details, your insurance policy details, your basic inputs like where you have kept important documents, what you have to do for certain things. Your spouse may not be fully aware of what's happening, what you have done. So please keep this file a folder that they can access in case of an eventuality. It's very important. Let's not be very emotional about it. Let's be very, very practical in such a situation. Next, coming from the professional side, keep all your project files or all your work profiles updated to a box or any of the common repository which has an access by your manager, which is very important. Your passwords and files have to be shared with your manager very periodically so that in case of an emergency, the work will not get hindered and the business will continue as usual. And also have a proper backup plan. Somebody should be knowing what you're doing on a day-to-day basis so that in case of an emergency to you, your client requirements do not get hampered. That is very important when we are working in corporates or even in smaller organizations. It is very, very important that we have a up, live and running backup plan available. Last and foremost, please do not forget that each one of us are dispensable. We are just like any other resource in the company. Please remember, for us, our families and friends, it may be little difficult, But please do remember that we are all dispensable, and let's be prepared for ourselves, so that, of course, very emotional to be thinking like that, but definitely it's very, very practical to be in current situation. Over to you, Sharda.
Thank you, Uma. That was fantastic. Because what if, what if I'm expended, or what if I have a problem? And unless we have that mind state to think about it, then we are not going to be fully prepared. So, Banu, can you take over the moderation of the questions from the audience, either through chat or by them asking questions?
Definitely, Sharda. Thank you so much. Can you hear me right, Sharda?
Absolutely loud and clear.
Okay. So fantastic moderation and awesome inputs by all our panelists. Really enjoyed the session this afternoon. We have some good questions today, but before that, I really apologize for the tech glitch. But like Kumar said, that was a fantastic plan to test how our infrastructure and technology supports. Appreciate all of you logging back in. Thank you so much. The first question is by a participant, Ramya Nirmal. And her question is, as a manager, should I be lowering the expectations in terms of deliverables that I have from my team? While we say standard business hours, we are also realizing that work from home is not working well for everyone in the team. She goes on to say that team is clocking full business hours, but we are not getting the same productivity.
So who wants to take this question?
I don't know. I felt Sudha was remotely touching on this topic.
Yes.
Do you want to?
Yeah, sure. Ramya, I think I did touch upon this. So when we say lowering expectations from deliverable in terms of deliverables, absolutely not. But it's more a question of how the outcome is to be delivered, or how the deliverable is going to be how is it going to get done. So as long so which is where the planning comes into effect, right? And we have to make sure that the team member understands what is the deadline, and within that deadline, if they are able to deliver it, and in case there are a few hours when there is something that needs to be looked at on the home front, and there's some emergency and so on, I think as managers, we need to keep that level of flexibility, provided it does not impact the final output, right? So, so it's a question, and this obviously cannot become a regular, pattern, right? So every time, there is something that needs, so the person is in the middle of a discussion, conversation, they break off, they say, I'll look into something, come back, right? So those kind of norms we have to kind of put in place, saying that these are the work hours, they need to plan around that. But if there's something that's calling their attention, small children, and we understand all of that, we need to be flexible as managers, make sure that the final output is not impacted, because the planning has been done keeping the deadline in mind.
Thank you, Sudha. Yeah, I think setting those expectations will be helpful, defining the norms. So, should HR consider, Sudha, and this is my question, so should, when we are packaging this whole work from home model, now that it is going to be a steady state model for long term, should our HR business partners be formulating work at home policies differently from the brick and mortar models?
Whom do you want?
No, I was asking that to Sudha only.
Okay. Yes, Banu, I think so. Because see, whenever we write policies, the context in which that policy was framed becomes very, very important, right? Because the policies to be seen in the context of of the background situation is when the applicability of the policy becomes effective. So so if you kind of look at that as a reference, I think the current situation is completely something that no, none of us would have ever imagined. So I think it's important to relook at the HR policies, with this perspective in mind. And then which is why I was also talking about how certain norms of rewards, recognition, and that also applies for any kind of disciplinary action and whatever, right? The other flip side of it also, what was framed in a different context probably will need to definitely get relooked at. Yes.
Got it. Okay. Thank you, Sudha. So there are two more questions from Ramya Nirmal. The second question is it fair to call a team member without giving notice for a meeting during standard business hours? This raises questions of whether we should focus on flexible work from home or standard business hours.
I think this question is to all the corporates who are working here. And it's about the HR policy. I don't think we have an HR here, per se here. Or anybody in the audience who is an HR who can handle this question, most welcome. Unmute yourself and answer it.
I think we have Ruth in the audience, right?
Yeah, Ruth. Ruth, do you want to answer this question?
1 second, yeah. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Well, I think it is more comfortable in getting across the board, because as what Sudha also added, I concur with what he says. Hello?
Yes,
yeah,
go ahead.
We can hear you, Ruth. Ruth, I'll repeat the question for you. Is it fair to call a team member without giving notice for a meeting during standard business hours? This raises questions of whether we should focus on flexible work from home.
Yeah, I mean, I was telling because Sudha also actually answered this some time back when she was talking about Sudha, sorry, what's the case. So I don't think it is unfair to call somebody during the office hours, and of course we were also discussing about I mean, prior information about some scheduled meetings. While it might also be a challenge if it's going to be the other gender, I don't see any challenges with respect to the phone calls. Only if it is a video call or something of that sort, then it makes the people uncomfortable. While a phone call might not impose such challenges or discomfort, is what my understanding and my experience is. Of course, all meetings can be scheduled, unscheduled phone calls, official phone calls, if it is not recurring in disturbing people, can definitely be accepted.
So Ruth, the point that I have is I'm taking it back to what Uma mentioned, right? If the standard business hours have been communicated and the expectations set, then it's like you're working in office. Right? It's just a different venue, but you are expected to be available as per those timings. Little flexibility here on an exigency mode is fine. But otherwise, I don't see anything wrong in calling the person, because that's work hours, right? And that has been communicated upfront and the expectations set. So I would think it's perfectly okay to call the person, because it's like, you're calling the person when he's doing official work. So it's like office hours. There's no change.
In fact, this happens even in office, right? We just call people for ad hoc meetings and
absolutely
do discuss things if it's important and not have a scheduled session.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely. I think those norms are very important. And, as managers, we don't have to feel defensive about it, because then we would end up setting a wrong precedent, and we would we will get into this guilt situation of every time feeling guilty calling somebody, right? There's nothing to feel guilty about, right? Unless the person has some emergency, there's somebody sick in the family or whatever. But otherwise, it's perfectly okay, because that's what you would do in office. That's exactly what you need to continue doing. Absolutely no change. You have to behave just the way you would in office.
But isn't that going to be very difficult for a woman? See, I mean, we are talking about a pandemic time where the entire household isn't there, and when you have small children, see, unlike Uma, whose daughter has finished her college, or me, whose daughters are all married off, what about those young women who have little children along with them? and it's like feeding time, this time, that time, everything is there. So how do they manage?
Sharda, if I can answer this, okay.
Yes,
Well,
yes.
I think, yeah. So I have actually been, I mean, most of us have been actually watching lots of messages from the CEO's desk, from the COO's desk, telling, giving the comfort in the initial phase when we started this lockdown period, telling that if it's okay if you're going to have your child scream on the background, it's okay if somebody's going to ring your calling bell, it's all accepted. So there are some adjustments and some comforts which actually have been sacrificed with respect to that. However, I understand, I mean, there was one question also posted asking about what if the living space is very less and somebody have to be working in, 3 people working in the same house. Yes, there are challenges, but I think that there's a lot of understanding in all this 2 months of period where we've been actually glued to our houses. And then there is also the feeling that these can occur and then we need to schedule our timing. As what Sudha said, when the business timings have been actually fixed and then we know that we are doing a committed job to our organization and we're getting paid for the salary that we are working, I think even aspects like your feeding or everything other aspects needs to be taken care. So while we have the flexibility of actually moving around the house and getting things done in the time where we don't have meetings or we don't have that much of tight schedule, I think this should definitely be accommodated and then given justice for what we are actually being employed for.
One more thing, Ruth, just to what you said, Sharda, we all have been shouting aloud for gender equality, and now why do we need to even take a concept of being a women
Exactly.
professional? Where what we come? The same men also have the same problem of running over when they're in a conference call. Right?
Absolutely.
No longer a gender specific issue, but a professional working from home, right?
Very true. Very true. Very true.
So, Uma, you are actually answering for the last question by Ramya, where she says that, where she says empathy can also lead to gender bias. Should we be flexible in terms of expectations depending on gender? In an office, the gender bias is nil since we are all in the same environment. So
I think yeah, pretty much it's covered, right? Yeah. I would take that question because I'm passionate about this subject. Once we are professionals, let's be more professional and prove that gender is just like any other thing. It's not a barrier for a career. Once we talk and take advantage of our gender, that's our growth stops. So let's not take the advantage of being any gender for that matter, not just a woman or a transgender or anything else, and try to scale up. So I think we should, as a professional, know to handle the current pandemic situation and its related ripple effects as a professional. So I think that's my fair answer to this.
I would like Vasugi to answer for this question, Vasugi,
Sure.
because you come from both the worlds, so you should be giving a different perspective to it.
Yeah, it's always easy to said than done. The thing is, a woman working in a professional organization or professional environment is very different, and there you can, there's no need to talk about this equality, and I mean, we can talk about it. But here, when you live as a family, do the other members in the family have the same understanding?
I think that is where Lakshmi Priya's question is also, right? There is one question that has come from Lakshmi, where she says we are just sitting in front of laptop and relaxing but not doing any household works. This is how the elders at home think, and they expect that we either have a meeting with the laptop or do household chores and take care of kids. Please, any suggestions or tips to make elders understand the pressure we have at job and how we are trying to balance work life? I think this is for you, Vasuki, to continue.
Yeah. Okay. So in this scenario, that empathy along with confrontation is very, very important. So you have to empathize with the elders at home, because please understand, for them also it is a very, 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 very different environment. And for them also, there are elders who started enjoying their loneliness and being alone or having their own space. Now it is suddenly, at least from this time to this time. So now it is for them also, it's a very entirely different situation. So that's what I said. You empathize. At the same time, you can't keep on empathizing with them. So confrontation, how you can do is, please make them to understand. See, yesterday I received a call from a 65-year-old man from a retirement community. He said that he got my number through his daughter who is in US. So what he says is, his wife, she is not even letting him go out of the veranda, because he says that I know that I'm not going to go out, and I just want to go out, but she's not letting me. So for him, it is kind of a control, because which he is used to do all these years. So for them to understand what is this COVID, at least in the language which they can understand, that's what the patience is very important. How you will explain to your own children. So the question, I just read it because she says that it is easy to make children understand, but not elders. So you treat them as children and just explain to them, this is a situation, this is where. And if you notice with those who are very closely relating with, communicating with elders, you will understand they will have some kind of basic needs. Okay, either it will be food or their physical safety, like they are very health conscious. Okay, maybe here aches and pains and all those things. Or there are few things. I every Friday I have to go to temple. They will have some particular very specific interest. So just catch on that. Tell them if they weakness, not weakness, I don't want to use the term weakness. If it is food, you just tell them, see, I'm there for you now. Whenever you want, I can give. During this break, we both can eat together. Something like that, no? So where you can impress and make them to understand this is a situation. It is not that I am holidaying or I am on vacation. This is a situation I am forced to sit here and do. Unless and otherwise I complete this, I will not. There are a lot of chances for me to lose a job. So make them to understand the scenario. Again, that next other side also, other perspective also, I'm telling you, if they are not able to understand, you can't do anything about it. You see to that how you can guard yourself so that it doesn't affect you. They may crib, they may do they may criticize, whatever they do. You have to start ignoring it, because it is not going to be like 1 week, 2 weeks, or 3 weeks. We don't know how it is going to, how long it is going to prolong. But still, you need to learn to live with that. Don't take it as a criticism. You can tell yourself this is how they understand, because for them also it's an entirely different scenario. At least for you, though it is working from home, you have different avenues where you can vent out and talk about and all those things. For them, no. Even the little space which they used to get now, that is also not there. Maybe you have occupied their own room for using your laptop and sitting there and working without disturbance.
No more serials also to make them lose their time also.
Exactly.
People at home are spending TV on mute, so you can imagine, because we are on call. But however, that's where the whole topic of communication and striking the right conversations is very, very important. You talk to them, you ask what they need, fulfill their needs, and be available to them. And then I think
also, what are the ways you can help them to get engaged? Because they have a lot of time in their hand, so they get little irritated when they see you completely in front of the system and sitting and doing something. So how you can, because all this time it happened somewhere else which they were not able to witness. Now it's happening in front of them. So that's what I said. No, when you want to prove, or when you want to be very productive and very sincere, that may create a toxic atmosphere at home. So be aware of that and just handle things with patience, empathy, at the same time confront.
Ma'am, I have a suggestion to add on, just again to say from a different perspective. I have a lot of lady members in my team also. One suggestion that I can recommend is to have a frank discussion with the people in the team and also the reporting manager. If there is a need, obviously there will be from taking care of household activities to children's to anybody across both genders. So one suggestion is that instead of sticking to a particular schedule 9 to 6, I cannot get out of my computer, it can always be where you start off a little early or end off a little later, but take that 1 or 2 hours where the individual also goes and sits with those people and ask them, okay, is there anything else that needs to be done from your end, or ensure that whatever activity that they feel needs to be taken care is completed. So that aspect is also done. And that time can also be communicated back to the team. Hey, at this moment, I'm not going to be available. I'm going to be with my family. And it can be worked out, right? It's not like, 9 hours an individual needs to be in calls and 9 hours an individual needs to be in terms of video conferences or emails or anything like that, right? End of the day, job needs to be done. And if people are also very clear at that time, they are away. If they need anything, give me a call, or if you need anything, WhatsApp me. I'm reachable, but I'm taking care of this. I'll come back. Problem solved. So there are other ways also that we can look at it. Also, is one
Good
suggestion.
point. Good point.
One more point I just wanted to add. Many of us now, after many years, we have introduced all these traditional games to our children. The reason is to keep them occupied, because as parents we used to complain about this gadget addiction and too much of time usage of gadgets and all those things. Now that cannot be a complaint at all, because we are forced to do it. Okay, so we tried a lot of different ways to make keep our children engaged. What do we do to engage our elders at home? Is there any way you can help them to pursue their hobbies? Get them something with what is their interest. As per their interest, they'll be so happy. You can make them happy with doing very, very small things. So treat them as equal to children. Because a lot of things are happening at the geriatric population. A lot of issues are happening.
That's a very good point. I think we have a lot of patience and love for our children, but we forget to wear the same gloves when it comes to senior care. So I'm glad that you touched upon it. There is one question from our advisor Kalyani, and we can make this the last one maybe. Kalyani's point is, unlike Western countries, in India, people live in small 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom apartment. How can we expect the employee to have a peaceful environment to work in? How companies are handling this situation?
So
And
it's
there
a
is
question
also
to
a
all.
continuation question from her, like.
Yeah, go ahead, Uma.
No, there's also a continuation question on how people in US are currently managing this, because generally work from home in US doesn't allow dependent children being at home, and they have to be in the play homes. And also in the office, there is a 15-minute break in the morning and afternoon and 1-hour lunch break. Can the same be enforced on work from home employees? Vikram, do you want to take any of this?
Yeah, I can
Yeah,
give
I can.
Sutherland. Go ahead, Vikram.
No,
Great.
ma'am, please complete.
No, please go ahead. I'm sure you'll share the same example. Go ahead.
No, I think it's, again, this is something that gets applied to everybody, right? See, how do we look at this, right? Somebody didn't apply for a work at home kind of a work, and the company said, yeah, okay, good, let's go ahead with it, and these are the preconditions, right? The work at home got enforced, so which means to some extent the company also has to accept, adjust, and live with the reality that there are going to be some challenges, right? Again, obviously, there might be individuals who might be sharing the same bedroom to make phone calls. It's like two colleagues sitting beside each other and taking the call. So let's face it, that is a reality, right? Maybe when there is a client call, or where there's a very critical call, maybe you can request the other individual to give you the privacy of the room. So I feel that, first of all, companies cannot enforce, because this is an situation which is totally different. It is not a prerequisite that I signed this job for and came. But as an individual, as an employee, I believe that to the best possible extent, from a privacy, from an ensuring that I do my job properly, whatever is the best that I can do should be looked at, and it needs to be a mutual aspect, is how I would say that.
Yeah, well said. Well said.
Perfect.
Yes, yeah.
And yeah, to your last question on the 15 minutes break. So Sutherland has, for example, we call them oxes, and we track the 15-minute break and 1 30-minute break. So it's like an hour break split across the day. So we follow that in terms of our remote work just now, into how many hours a person is logging in versus the break time. And that's how we look at a schedule duration adherence. I think the interesting part now is with the entire digital play and technology and tools, we have tools like ProHands, for example, which allows me to monitor remotely how many hours a person is productive on the PC doing a job. So there are technology aided solutions that are helping us. Okay, so with that, I think we have covered almost all the questions that came today on the chat side. But very interesting panel discussion, and I thoroughly enjoyed myself today. Great inputs and great learning. Thank you again, everybody. And if there are any last words, Sharda, that you like to say, we can close after that.
I had a fantastic panelist along with me, and each one coming with a different perspective is what made the whole program very interesting. And the rich experience and the practical experience, I would say, rather than the rich experience, the rich practical experience that everyone brought in. I think we were able to have some knowledge share with all the folks. Not that there are best practices that each of the companies are following, and all these things getting shared here is a fantastic way. And thanks to COVID, that we are getting a much better attendance than in a regular face-to-face meeting. And so, thank you, COVID. Yes, Banu.